Across the wild landscapes of Alaska, few animals represent the power of nature quite like the brown bear. These enormous mammals can be found along rivers, forests, mountains, and coastal regions, living in an environment where every season brings a different challenge. Although they may appear almost invincible, life in the Alaskan wilderness is never easy, and these bears must constantly adapt to changes in weather, food availability, and competition. One of the most important periods of the year begins when the rivers come alive with salmon. After spending years in the ocean, thousands of salmon return to the rivers where they were born, creating one of the greatest feeding opportunities in the Alaskan wilderness. Brown bears gather along the waterways, waiting for the perfect moment to catch them. Some bears stand in shallow water, while others patiently watch from the riverbank before suddenly charging into the current. For a bear preparing for winter, every salmon can make a difference. During this period, bears can consume enormous amounts of food. They need to build large energy reserves because winter will eventually cover the landscape in snow and ice. Berries, roots, vegetation, small animals, and fish all become part of their diet, allowing them to accumulate the fat necessary to survive the cold months. But the life of a brown bear is not simply about finding food. Competition is everywhere. Several bears may arrive at the same river, and larger individuals often dominate the best fishing locations. A powerful adult male can force younger bears away, while mothers with cubs must remain especially cautious. For a young bear, getting too close to the wrong adult can be extremely dangerous. And then there are the cubs. Brown bear cubs are born during the winter, while their mothers remain inside sheltered dens. At birth, they are incredibly small and completely dependent on their mothers. They spend their first months nursing and growing before eventually emerging into the spring wilderness. Once outside, the cubs begin following their mothers everywhere, learning where to find food and how to recognize danger. For the mother, raising cubs requires constant attention. She must search for enough food while keeping her young close and protecting them from potential threats. The cubs, meanwhile, turn almost everything into a lesson. They watch their mother digging, fishing, walking, and searching through the vegetation. These experiences will eventually help them become independent bears. As summer progresses, the Alaskan landscape becomes increasingly important to their survival. Long days provide more opportunities to feed, rivers become crowded with salmon, and the bears take advantage of almost every available source of nourishment. They must make the most of this short period of abundance, because winter is always waiting. When autumn finally arrives, the behavior of the bears begins to change. Their search for food becomes more intense as they prepare for the months ahead. They eat whenever opportunities appear, building the reserves that will sustain them through the winter. Soon, snow begins to cover the landscape once again. The rivers become quieter, vegetation disappears beneath the cold, and the bears retreat toward sheltered areas where they can spend the winter. For months, the outside world may appear almost lifeless. But inside their dens, the cycle of life continues. And when spring finally returns to Alaska, the bears emerge once again. Some will have survived another winter. Some will return to the same rivers in search of salmon. Mothers will lead their growing cubs into the wilderness, and young bears will continue learning the skills they will need to survive on their own. The story of Alaska's brown bears is a story of strength, adaptation, and survival. From the first salmon of summer to the deep silence of winter, every season plays a role in their existence. And when we look at the extraordinary way these animals are adapted to such a demanding environment, it is difficult not to recognize the incredible complexity of God's creation. In one of the harshest landscapes on Earth, life continues through an intricate cycle of feeding, growth, reproduction, and survival. The Alaskan brown bear may be one of the wilderness's most powerful animals, but its survival still depends on something much greater than strength alone. It depends on the land, the rivers, the seasons, and the remarkable balance of the natural world.